As you've been hearing, thousands of students are beginning their first lessons back in a classroom today as most states and territories return to a full-time school day. It brings to an end weeks of remote learning, and a new report from the leading educational charity, the Smith Family, shows how much of a burden online lessons have been for many disadvantaged families. Here's Dr. Lisa O'Brien, the CEO of the Smith Family. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Ross.
Hello. What were some of the most common problems you found families faced when their kids were learning from home?
So the research that we have done has been talking to the families that we support long term with our Learning for Life program. These are highly disadvantaged families right across Australia. And so they're families who are struggling already with a range of challenges, high unemployment. They're all low income families. Many of them are single parent families, and a significant proportion have either a child or a parent who has a health or disability issue. So they're struggling to start with, and so the added burden of schooling children at home has been considerable for these families. So the sorts of things that they've been talking to us about are things like not having the right sort of tools or environment at home to support learning. So many of them don't have the internet at home or a device that their child can use to connect with school and to do homework for them now that they're back at school. So that's a huge challenge. Many of the parents are feeling that they don't have the skills and capabilities to support their child with their learning. A lot of these families, English is a second language for them. They may have had low levels of schooling themselves, or they're struggling with other health or disability issues. Obviously, unemployment is a huge issue, and for some of the older students that we support, who are studying at TAFE University, many of them have lost the part-time work that they rely on to support themselves while they're studying. And then there are sadly some families where the home environment is not safe for children. There have been issues of violence or other challenges in the past, and so there's real concern about keeping their children safe during that time of isolation. So there's a whole range of challenges these families have been facing over these last few weeks, and these are kids who are struggling with their education already, so we really worry about how they've been impacted by this period.
So just picking up on some of those points then, what help was there for kids who didn't have a laptop or access to the internet? And also some schools were offering hard copy resources, weren't there? Was that a good alternative?
Look, for some families that was helpful as long as the family could get to the school. I think that the digital divide issue, I think it's to some extent, this crisis has shone a light on this issue. It has been there for a long time and has allowed us to sort of address the access issue. So there's been some generous support from corporate partners who've lent in and helped us to provide a device and access to the internet for these kids, which has just been absolutely wonderful for some of these families to get that support. I guess what concerns me is when kids get back to school, they're still going to need this support for their learning at home so they can complete their work and homework at home. And to continue to have access to the internet, I think, is really vital for families long term.
So many of these kids who are back at school today then, Lisa, have effectively missed out completely on 2 months of schooling. Can they catch up from that?
Look, our research tells us that with the right support at the right time, these kids, many of them who are very disadvantaged, and as I said, they start school behind and fall further behind as they go through. But with the right support, they can catch up. But they will need extra learning support programs, both in school and at home, to try and have the tools so that they can catch up and complete school and build a great future for themselves.
Is there a real risk, though, that these kids could now just feel disengaged from school? And if so, how do you get that back?
Look, for some of these kids, that's what we've been hearing in the research that we're doing, working with these families across the country, particularly children who are transitioning into Year 7 or in the higher years of high school like Year 10 or 11. Some of them are at risk of disengaging, and certainly that's the work that we do with these families, is helping parents and their children to stay engaged with their education and providing support for them. mentoring and encouragement around completing their learning. And that's work we will be very actively doing both now and well into the future.
And what are some of the broader issues facing these families, Lisa? Things like mental health and even food security?
Yes, look, a lot of families rely on additional supports. A lot of kids will go to breakfast clubs at school when they're attending there, and so having the family at home the whole time has actually put additional burden. Some of the families have talked to us about the family budget going up significantly with everyone at home. And of course, many of these families, 40% of our students and 50% of their parents, these families have a health or disability issue. And so, of course, at a time of extreme stress, it has aggravated particularly some of the mental health issues that they're facing. So it's, these families have really been doing it tough, and I'm just amazed by their resilience. So we just need to keep focused on them and continue to support them during this time.
Dr. Lisa O'Brien, thank you.